Hi guys, it's Miss Owens, and today I wanted to talk to y'all about fighting in school and what the potential consequences could be. So I know at Austin Achieve, the consequence of fighting in school is going to RJ, but I wanted us to think about what would happen if we didn't have an RJ program here or if we were at a different school. So if you fight in school at a different school, there's something called a student resource officer or an SRO. And the SRO's job is basically to be a police officer inside of school and to handle things like really serious things like bringing drugs to school or weapons to school, fighting or other serious offenses that happen. And when a fight happens at school and there's a student resource officer, an SRO, that police officer has the choice whether they arrest you or not. And oftentimes kids do get arrested for fighting, especially if there's like serious harm caused to the other student or to property or things like that. So in Texas, if you get arrested for fighting, you get charged with something called aggravated assault, which is a felony, meaning that it's a serious offense and it's serious enough that it could lead to jail time or other serious consequences. So if you get charged with aggravated assault, there are a few different consequences that could potentially happen to you. So if this is your first time getting arrested, sometimes you'll go to something called the First Offender Program, which is something called a diversion program. So it's to avoid the different consequences like probation or jail time or juvenile detention. And the First Offender Program is basically that the court, a judge would monitor that you go to school, that you take counseling, that you pay restitution. So you pay back if you like caused any damage to property, you'd like pay that back. So that way it was made right. You'd be tracked to make sure you go to school. You would basically have to kind of be watched to make sure that you complete all of these things without it being as serious as it's staying on your record. So if you complete the program, if you complete the certain amount of time that they give you and you do all the things that they're asking of you, that charge won't stay on your record. It'll act like it never happened. If you don't follow the rules of this program in Texas, you can go to a juvenile detention center for 90 days, which is 3 months. Another consequence that could happen instead of the First Offender Program is something called probation. And probation exists for both juveniles, so people under the age of 18, and for adults, so people over the age of 18. And what probation basically is you can live at your house, you can live at home, but somebody from the court called a probation officer would be watching you and making sure that you are following all of the rules that they have for while you're on probation. And a probation officer is allowed to come to your house any time of the day and check up on you and check up on your family. You're required to go to the probation office every certain amount of time. So it could be once a week, it could be once every 2 weeks, it could be once a month. And they'll check your grades, they'll give you a drug test, they'll make sure you're going to school. And you'll also be required to do things like taking classes about your offense. So it would be like anger management if you were arrested for assaulting somebody, or alternatives to violence. So what you could do instead of hurting somebody's body when you feel upset or angry. The other part of probation is that you have to pay to be on probation. And so every time you go and visit your probation officer, you have to pay a fee. And that fee is usually anywhere between like $50 and $100. But if you're going once a week, that's $400 a month or $200 a month just to go get checked up on. And then the most serious consequence that you could be given is something called juvenile detention, which is basically like jail for kids. And when you're in juvenile detention, you live there full time. You are living in a very small room. You have to go to school there. You have to eat all your meals there. You have to make sure that you're following all the rules that have been given to you. And you're not allowed to go home until you're done with it, and your family's not allowed to visit unless it's this times that they can come visit, and you don't get to see your friends, and you only get one phone call a day. And this can last for like 30 days. So you could be in this juvenile detention center for 30 days, or they can hold you up until your 19th birthday. And so you think about it, you guys are in middle school. Some people who do really serious things are in this juvenile detention center, in jail for kids from the time they're 12 or 13 to the time that they're 19. And so when we think about how fighting can affect you, it just seems like something to solve a problem really quickly, but these offenses can go on your record. And so when it comes to applying for college one day, people will check your record and see that you were fighting. Or if you want to apply for a job one day, they do background checks. So like for me, when I applied for this job, they had to check my background to make sure that I didn't have any criminal history, because I'm working with young people. And most jobs do background check to make sure that you have a clean record. And you know, applying for apartments, they also do background checks. But the other thing is that we don't think about a lot is like when you're arrested, or if you get in trouble with the police, a lot of times your family is really responsible for a lot of things. So for example, if you get arrested, your parents are responsible for paying all of your court fees. And so to go to court, to go to probation, to stay in a juvenile detention center, all costs your family money. And so families have been like broke from just having their kids get in trouble with the police, or having to go to court, or having to stay somewhere. Families might also have to participate in counseling. Families might also have to go to all the court hearings. So parents are required to go to all court hearings with their kids. And so a lot of times, like, court hearings happen during the day, during a weekday. And so for parents who work, they have to take the time off of work and potentially not get paid to go to court with their kid, and then lose out on that money just to show up in front of a judge for you. And that court appearance might be 5 minutes long. It might be 2 minutes long. It doesn't have to be this long thing. It might just be like, okay, we're gonna keep you on probation, come back in a month, things like that. And on top of that, like, your parents or whoever is your guardian has to pay for a lawyer. They have to pay to make sure you're represented. And if you are with a public defender who's like a free lawyer, you still have to pay to make sure that they stay your lawyer. And so after all that, I really want you to think about, like, is fighting worth it? Is potentially getting arrested, is potentially getting in trouble, is potentially having a record, is it worth it? And what things can you try, or what can you think about doing to avoid using violence as a way to solve your problems?